What would the world be like if tattoos could be inherited genetically? If they could mutate over time based on which tattoos each parent had, like with hair and eye color? I think that Godspeed should be the highest gear in a spaceship or a car. The actual word just means good luck, essentially, but fuck that shit. If you want it to mean that, then spell it in its original ye old Middle English. You start spelling it speed, you better fucking well be referring to velocity. I don't think people say by thunder enough anymore. You know, like when they really mean something. I did it recently, and by thunder it felt good. Gonna have to use that more often. I really wish we'd chosen to call black people brown instead. Now, if I describe a movie as a black comedy, or if I describe a tragedy as a black day in history, I twinge just a little, because I'm associating a word used to describe a racial political minority with something quite horribly negative, like we need yet more baggage attached to racial tension, nah? I suppose some might say that we should change black to be just about the race and find another word for the negative connotations, but why? I mean, the color that those of African descent have for skin isn't actually black. Of course, white people aren't exactly white either, eh, Pinky? Flesh and blood. This expression bothers me. Someone says, hey, can you blame me? I'm only human. I'm made of flesh and blood. Oh, really? Well, imagine if you were, and that's it. Hair? Hair isn't flesh or blood. Hey, you're bald. Teeth? Oop, now you need dentures. Bone? Now you're a pile of flesh and blood, and dentures, sitting in a pile on the floor. You're a flesh puddle. Hopefully you can slurp along like a snail or something, but wow, you couldn't even reach the doorknob. Human expressions, taken literally, really wig me out sometimes. Why is there no word like both for more than two? Like, you can say, I was both happy and excited, but if you say, I was both stressed, annoyed, and grumpy, people look at you funny. But it's true. There's no both word for more than two. Well, why not? Wouldn't it be useful? Actually, no, it probably wouldn't be all that useful. Looked at objectively, both in the above context is kind of redundant. I was happy and excited? No, I was both happy and excited. Well, I mean the same damn thing. At most, both simply provides emphasis. Unnecessary emphasis. So having a word like both for more than two wouldn't help a whole lot, really. On the other hand, you can use both in a much more useful way. Which of these types of cookies do you want at your party? Gee, I can't decide. Let's have both. If you do that with more than two, you have to say all of them or each. Well, why? What's so special about two? Why does two get its own word? I mean, I like even numbers, and 2 is probably my favorite, though 6 and 8 are close runners-up. 4 can go fuck itself, and 0 is kind of like the numerical equivalent of y, being only an even number when preceded by a digit in the tens place. But still, I don't think it deserves its own adjective. Doesn't make any sense. Have you ever met someone who pronounces it like there's an L in it? Both? Well, I mean, sometimes even I do it. It just feels right. It's probably because of the TH at the end. You're already getting your tongue involved, so it's not a huge skip and jump to get some L action going on. Of course, it bothers me even when I do it, but hey. Is it just me, or do most ancient tortures just seem like particularly cruel fraternity pranks? Most of them seem to involve humiliation as much as pain and death. The Romans hanging Jesus off the cross were essentially doing some sort of extreme hazing. So until you really get the hang of it and really know what you're doing, are you just apprentice baiting? Of course, unless you have someone teaching you to get yourself off and therefore had no master, I suppose you'd have to be amateur baiting. But then, unless you're in porn, nobody's paying you, so anybody who brings themselves to orgasm is amateur baiting. But then, how do you become a master? Experience? 'Cause I gotta tell you, there's some folks out there who are jolly well masturbating. This is so confusing. Why is it that cucumbers got to be the standard for what makes a pickle? I mean, you can pickle just about anything, vegetable or meat, yet somehow the only one of these that got saddled with the name pickle spoken without a modifier to describe what was being pickled are cucumbers. What the hell's that about? You know what I've noticed? They never put nutritional information on medicine. Like, how many calories are there in a dose of penicillin? They never say. You'd think that'd be something they'd put on there. When someone says prevert, but they mean pervert, what exactly would that mean? What would it be to be a prevert? I mean, okay, preversion, like perversion, aversion, subversion, diversion, etc. So what does version mean? What does vert mean? In many languages, vert means green, but I doubt that's it. No, an online etymology dictionary says that vert comes from vertere, which means to turn, which I suppose means to change in this context, like the turning of the seasons. It kind of makes sense, but that would mean that a prevert is someone who changes beforehand. So a prevert would in fact be a trendsetter, someone who embraces changes prior to their popularity. Well, either that or a time traveler, or possibly a psychic with precognitive abilities. Frankly, I'd be proud to be called a prevert, but then I wouldn't particularly mind being called a pervert either, so what do I know? You know, it occurs to me that a pair of binoculars is redundant. Either you have binoculars or you have a pair of oculars. The bi at the beginning of binoculars already implies a set of two. What are people thinking when they fuck up expressions? I don't necessarily mean that they have the whole thing wrong. I mean like when they use a homophone in place of the real word when they're writing them down. For example, I've seen people explain that they're towing the line. Now, come on, the real expression is towing the line, putting your toe up against a line someone has told you not to cross, like you're threatening to cross it. But these folks who say they're towing the line, what are they picturing? I mean, I can only imagine. Some guy dropped a bit of cabling which you've picked up by one end and are dragging behind you as you walk around. How does that fit the context this expression is normally used in at all? It just seems to me that they haven't thought this through. And this isn't the only expression that gets messed up like this, but it's weird, isn't it? Doesn't it seem like amen is actually a word of negation, like amoral or abiogenesis? Which kind of makes a perverse kind of sense, assuming you're like me and think that most religions cast humanity in the role of miserable wretches who don't deserve the life they possess. Amen. Against men. Against humanity. You think? Why are circuit boards green? I mean, who decided that? And why green?